Whether you already have a YouTube channel or you just want to get some cool footage, a drone is an amazing piece of gear. This thing will take your footage to a whole new level, getting a new perspective that you just can't get from the ground, and also saves you a lot of effort. You don't have to get out the vehicle, run ahead, set up the tripod. In this video, I'll go over some of the drone choices in case you don't already have one, and I'll give you some tips to get the best footage. When it comes to buying a drone, you have a variety of choices when it comes to the brand, but DJI is a good solid choice. They've got a good range of drones that cover various budgets and requirements. I'll put links to all of the ones I recommend in the description. On the low end, they have the DJI Mavic Mini series. You can get the Mavic Mini for $399, but I'd actually recommend spending the $50 more to get the DJI Mini 2. It has a 10-kilometer range, which is 2.5 times better than the previous model, and it also has a much better camera. And even though I called the Mini series the low end, it's actually still a fantastic drone, and it'll give you some great video footage. Next in the lineup is the Mavic Air series, and their new DJI Mavic Air 2S is probably their best drone yet. It's small, it's light, and it has a similar range, 12 kilometers, a similar range to the Mini 2, but there are a couple of things that set it apart. First of all, the Air 2S has 4 sets of collision sensors, like you have on this drone. I've got them on the front, the back, the bottom, and the top, and that's going to make it a lot easier to fly and a lot less likely to fly into a tree. Second thing is it has a 1-inch sensor on the camera that produces some amazing quality footage. That sensor is over twice the size of the sensor in the Mini 2 and is exactly twice the size of the sensor in the Air 2. At $999, I'd say that the Air 2S is the best value drone that DJI has ever sold. I'd actually say it's better, a lot of features are better than the Mavic 2 Pro, which is the one I have, which is $600 more at $1,599. This thing doesn't have any sensors on the top. It's also bigger, it's heavier, has slightly less range at 10 kilometers, and it has less frame rate options. My highest frame rate at 4K is 30 frames per second with this, and you can do 60 with the Air 2S. That being said, some pro videographers will probably still go with the Mavic 2 Pro because it's got an adjustable aperture. That allows you to instantly adjust the amount of light that's going into the camera, and you can adjust the exposure quickly and easily using it. That's a feature that I use a lot while videoing. I don't know if it's worth the $600 though. DJI also have the Phantom and the Inspire series of drones, but those are much larger drones that can take up a lot of valuable space on your overlanding trips, so it's difficult to recommend those unless you really want the quality of the Inspire, because that's going to be a professional level drone. But let's be honest, if you're flying an Inspire drone, you're probably not watching my video now. The final option is the DJI FPV, and this one you fly by viewing through the camera and a headset on here, and this is a ton of fun to fly. So if you're looking for something that's a toy or just to shoot a little bit of fun video, this is the one to get. The beginner modes on here are smooth, they're easy to fly, or if you want to, you can stick it into manual mode and really get the most out of it. With this one, it's more for the action shots, so it's fast, it's low, it's through small gaps, that kind of thing. If you want to do the landscape video, this one's not as good. It can do it, but it's not nearly as steady as the ones, the Mavic series, the Phantom series, with their gimbals. My first tip is to be as smooth as possible with your flying. You want to make as few adjustments as you can, and you want to hold those shots for as long as you can as well. You'll probably want to keep them going longer than you think you need. That way it gives you extra room at the start and the end of the clip to adjust and edit. Now obviously when you're going to make adjustments, you're going to move around. You may even need to look around using the drone, but when you do that, don't include that in your final video. That being said, I've done it a couple of times, but only when something really cool happens, something I wasn't expecting. For example, on one of our trips in Wyoming, we had some pronghorn run across the road in front of us, and I was flying facing the other direction, so I spun the drone around and I included them running across in front of us. But I think it was worth it. You know, it showed something cool that I wouldn't have otherwise captured. When it comes time to actually fly, people have different methods of holding the controller. Some people do what's called the claw, where they grip the thumbsticks like this. I personally put my thumb on top while I'm actually flying. When it comes time to get the shot, I want to be as smooth as I can, and when I'm being driven down a bumpy road, that can be difficult. So what I do is I'll set up the movement I want, and then I'll actually jam my thumb down the side like this, and that allows me to hold it steady, and it means if I'm going over bumps, it's not going to move around. And I can still adjust, so I can push further over if I need to, or I can go straighten up if I need to. You'll also want the biggest memory card possible in your drone. That way, when you take off, you can just start recording and not worry about it. A lot of people start to concentrate on their actual flying and forget to start and stop the recording. I've done it, and actually some of my best shots I missed out on because I forgot to press record. So I've got the largest memory card possible. I just make sure I back it up often. The next tip is to get some variety in your shots. You can get shots both close to the subject and far away. You can do it low to the ground, showing speed, movement, or you can do it high up, showing the landscape and the surrounding scenery. And whatever shot you choose, have some movement in there. You can just simply, at the very least, have the drone slowly moving sideways. It's a great way to improve the footage, make it more interesting. Having a foreground or background moving really helps too. When setting up your video, you have some choice with the frame rate, and it really doesn't matter what you choose as long as it matches your entire project. So with mine, I do 30 frames per second, and that ties in nicely to a 60 frames per second video. But the important thing is, if you're choosing 30 frames per second, you want to set the shutter speed to 1/60th of a second. If you're shooting in 60 frames per second, you want your shutter speed to be 1/120th of a second, or at least as close to it as possible. That gives your camera and your video a natural looking motion blur and stops it coming through really jittery. Now some people do have trouble with overexposure when they do those settings, so they end up getting an ND filter, and that's something that I have on the front of my camera. On the front of the drone there, I have an ND4 on this one currently, and that allows the light to be cut down. Finally, you need to make sure that your drone flights are legal. Firstly, because you probably want to avoid a $5,000 fine, but secondly, because it's the law. There are lots of places that unfortunately you just cannot fly. First of all, there's anywhere managed by the National Park Service. So yes, national parks, but also national recreation areas, national seashores, national monuments, basically anything with a name that starts with national. You also can't fly in wilderness airspace, prohibited airspace, active restricted airspace, within airport airspace without permission, anywhere there's a temporary flight restriction, most state parks. There's a ton of places, unfortunately, you just can't fly. And getting the AirMap app for your phone will help. It does show areas that you cannot fly. Unfortunately, it does tend to miss some of the more local regulations, especially state parks, and it doesn't work when you don't have cell service. The thing that helped me the most was getting my remote pilot license. That taught me a lot about where I can and cannot fly. It also allowed me to read the maps. I can download these VFR maps to my Gaia GPS app and look at those. And it's also a requirement if you're compensated in any way for the video that you use, or the drone video that you use on your YouTube channel, for example. So if you're monetized, you have affiliate links, you're getting free products, any of those things, that counts as compensation, that counts as commercial use of that drone footage. So a license is actually required for that. It is $150 to take the test. It sounds like a lot, but it's a lot less than the FAA will fine you if you break their rules. Obviously, if you're not monetized, you're not planning on being monetized, and you're not receiving any kind of compensation, then you're fine. You can fly the drone as much as you want, as long as you're flying it where you're legally allowed to fly it. Hopefully this video helped you out with getting started with a drone. Definitely subscribe to the channel and look out for my video on the specific drone shots that I use while filming. Thanks for watching.